Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Gochner, and this is Both Sides of the Aisle. I represent the political center and have on the political left, Shireen Ghorbani.
Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in.
And on the political right, John Dougal.
Hey, always great to be with you.
Shutdown. Shutdown is happening. We're recording on Monday. We don't know what's going to happen by the time.
We're not getting paid, but we're working.
Yeah.
But I think we should just start out by just saying, what do you make of this, John? Like, are you going with the polls that say that most people are blaming the Republicans for this?
Oh, that's not the polls I've seen.
Okay.
I mean,
tell me more, because I've seen three that all were
convincingly. The poll I saw was very split. 39% were blaming Republicans. I think it was 33 or 34% were blaming the Democrats, and the remainder were blaming both of them.
Yeah, well, you should blame both of them. How about you? What are the polls you've seen?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as well. I think the sense is when you control government, that a sort of a default assumption is this is your fault, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's at the basis of it. The other thing that I think suggests to me that Republicans understand that they have a problem with this is Trump's behavior and the just incessant lies from Republican leadership that the reason this is happening is because of a completely false narrative. And
that we're providing health care to illegals.
To undocumented folks, yeah. And I think...
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the thing that is this is disingenuous for so many reasons. First of all, if people show up at our emergency rooms, they are treated. Like if people come in with a gunshot wound, they're treated. That is how our system works.
Stub toe, they're treated.
They're treated. That is, documentation status has nothing to do with it. What it does have to do with is if you are allowed to get on Medicaid or if you're allowed to buy health care through the marketplace. And right now, about 395,000 Utahns are poised to see their health care premiums on the Affordable Care Act on the marketplace, Obamacare, to see those go up in some cases up over 100% up. And that is the real story, not about folks who are undocumented getting health care.
Unlike the lies of Chuck Schumer, which is, we're not shutting down the government, but in essence, we're shutting it down about this health care topic.
You bet.
So he's trying to play it both ways.
Do you not buy the idea that those Medicaid subsidies were temporary as part of the COVID response?
That's a small portion of it. It is a small portion of it. But I would also direct you back, and I'm sure you know this number just as I do, that during that period of time, Utah had some of the lowest uninsured numbers that we have ever seen.
Yeah.
And we did not see an explosion in costs to the state driven by people utilizing that health care. What we know is that when people have access to, for example, Medicaid, they're more likely to stay on insulin. They're more likely to get those preventative checks. They're more likely to catch things earlier, which ultimately saves our system money. And frankly, it's one of our biggest tools in fighting homelessness as well.
Yeah.
There are just so many layers to
this. That's one of the problems with the
this.
metrics, because if you're on government health care, I do not consider that being insured. This is government assistance. But there's a difference between you buying your own insurance and you being on a government program.
Okay.
I mean, do you think that the costs, there has to be a place where we find agreement here?
Yeah, there has to. And it's not clear to me when that will come. But if I were in Congress, I would not be supporting this shutdown. I would not be supporting it because of the costs of a shutdown. And I'm not meaning economic costs. I think it can be a hiccup if we get this done quick enough. But the cost of ripping apart the federal government like this is not lost on me.
Yeah.
And I think we're at risk of misreading the economy because we're already not getting data out that we should be seeing. And it's right at a critical time. I've made that point before.
I know.
What would cause you to say, Chuck Schumer versus in March where he was at, and it was too dangerous to shut down the federal government versus where he's at today?
If the Republicans had not put forward a measure to keep funding at existing levels, even Biden-era levels, and keep the government running while we talk through it, I think that's a reasonable place to be, and the Democrats turn their heads on it. And so I think the Democrats are walking a pretty thin ice here.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just also say the cost of living in this country is exploding for folks. One of the levers that they have that they can put pressure on right now is saying that these subsidies for marketplace plans should continue, that we don't want to see these cuts to Medicaid. We don't want to see the ripple out impact of closing rural hospitals. We don't want to see further healthcare deserts exacerbated across states like ours.
Yeah.
And that to me is a worthy argument.
Yeah. Shireen, where I will take issue with the Republicans is our president putting out, social media posts with Hakeem Jeffries, I don't know, with a sombrero on.
Race
is that
baiting.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just so childish in my thinking, that I think of, I want our leaders to act like I want my kids to act.
Yeah.
So I don't like that. Did you see the meme?
I did. It's
terrible.
Yeah. Well,
Just dumb.
It's Trump spends a lot of time being juvenile.
Yeah.
And that's not presidential. I mean, I come from that Reagan era.
Yeah.
You want somebody who's talking about our better angels rather than our
A
coarser
city on the
selves.
hill. Yeah. John, you have a special tie here because Representative Mike Kennedy is from your district. You ran against him, if I'm getting this right.
Yeah. Well, we
you know
ran,
him well.
We ran for the same seat.
Ran for the same seat.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But Representative Kennedy's got this idea that he could pass legislation that would automatically fund the government at current levels so that you can't do shutdowns anymore.
Yeah, he and others are talking about this thing. The problem with that, from my perspective, is it puts the federal government completely on autopilot.
That's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, if we can never pass a budget, so we'll just continue on autopilot for here until eternity. The last time we actually followed the Budgetary Procedure Act was, I think, in '96. So we're talking pushing 30 years now.
Yeah. This sounds ripe for an amendment, though, to pass this bill, but do have a sunset on it as the amendment.
When you say have a sunset, meaning
you cannot use this. You cannot use a government shutdown as a tool without going through a year-long cooling process.
Oh, okay, but then we'll end up back in a we'll end up back with cliffs and games and weaponization and so forth. The other thing I've heard from folks is that if you actually put the federal government on autopilot like this, you anticipate that it will actually grow spending over time.
Yeah.
So it will not maintain and control costs like a fiscal conservative like me would be worried about, or out of control debt.
Yeah. Shireen, have you been paying attention to all these, judicial rulings that have been blocking Trump from sending troops to Oregon, from firing the Federal Reserve governor for now?
Yeah.
The legal system is creating quite a check.
Check. Yeah. And I'll say many of these, not all, but in some cases, these are Trump appointed judges that are, previous administration appointed judges that are holding him accountable, which is good to see. I think what's concerning is that we have people like Stephen Miller really calling for, I think, creating a very dangerous environment for judges across this country, and really calling for, I feel like, an insurrection against our judicial system. So that's problematic. But there are some wins. I think what I'm worried about is what happens with our, Republican majority Supreme Court as they are now, back in session. And we're thinking about, some of these things that are maybe temporary decisions. Will they stand in the long run? So I think there's some good news, but there's a lot of concern. I would say some of the things that I'm interested in are just I know, John, that you're a fiscal conservative, and I really believe this about you. And I think one of the things that's so frustrating for me is when I see these call outs of the National Guard, when I see what's happening in these cities, and I think about the cost of, for example, housing a person for a night. The frustration that I have is so deep and real that we're able to find endless financial resources to call out the National Guard, create a false sense of risk in cities that are largely peaceful, that have,
Are you saying Portland doesn't have a war zone?
Portland, for example. I would say people have tried to characterize downtown Salt Lake City, not at the same level, but there are people in our legislature that suggest that it's a really dangerous place to be. I find that it is a very wonderful and peaceful place to be, but this kind of...
I grew up in Portland, and my sister lives downtown there, and I've got other siblings in the area, and they're like, the protest had 30 people. It was impotent. Right. There was no war zone going on.
There's no war zone. I just think the wasteful spending would be enough to just send you right over the edge. Is it?
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, that's one of my key things. This was the problem I had with Doge. It was a great concept, but in practice, it was like, okay, a bunch of 8th graders that didn't understand how the government worked and ended up wasting more money than we're ever going to save.
That's right.
John, this is what I love about you, though, is you are so evidence-based in the way you think about things and principled. And because I think that's really a reasonable position that you're sharing there. So thank you for that.
This is my frustration on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I have a question for you that kind of comes from our rundown today, is looking at the Trump administration's demand that universities ban the use of race or sex in hiring or admissions and cap foreign students to 15% of undergrads. What's your reaction on that?
Why would you do that? Why not recognize the rich, not meaning racial and ethnic, but the diversity of circumstances that every university in the country is under in terms of their funding model, in terms of their areas of specialization, in terms of their relationships with, other countries. We have a campus, University of Utah in Korea. We have incredible exchange programs with Korea.
Right.
And so I think it's crazy to do a one-size-fits-all for every university.
Yeah, it's very, it's the big hand of the government, for sure.
Yeah. And, one of the things that major public universities offer their students is that international exposure. Right. This is something, by the way, that Brigham Young University, a private university, is really good at. Yeah. Lots of international students at BYU.
I think what I find...
It enriches your education. It doesn't distract from it.
And I don't mean this in the sense that I only see international students as a commodity. I want to be really clear. I fully believe that it enhances the experience and it makes us more globally minded, I think better citizens of the world. But they also pay a lot. And to think about all of the cuts that are happening in higher education and then say, and you can't market yourself to students that are, bringing in a particular revenue stream is incredibly frustrating.
They pay a lot. That's usually like 3 times what the going rate is for an in-state student.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't particularly like
What did you think about Gavin Newsom? Maybe we'll come back from the break. I want to bring this up.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Let's take a short break. Natalie Gochner with Shireen Gorbani and John Dougal. Stay tuned, everyone.
You're listening to Both Sides of the Aisle on Utah Public Radio. We love to hear from listeners like you. If you would like to send us a comment, email bsotapodcast@gmail.com. That's bsotapodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Shireen Gorbani on the left.
John Dougal on the right.
Natalie Gochner in the political center, and this is Both Sides of the Aisle. And we are talking right now about Gavin Newsom and the way he's dealing with President Trump's threat to higher education that you can't have international students.
Well, and he's
at least you have to cap it at 15%.
If you follow if you kiss the ring, if you will, Gavin Newsom's saying, hey, you're not going to get state funds if you're a state institution in California. So it's kind of flipping the script the opposite way.
Yeah. So Trump's actually asking universities to sign a compact supporting his agenda, which to me, I think is just a terrifying compliance of thought, right? I don't want this on the left. I don't want this on the right, certainly.
And he's using the argument, which is you're getting federal funds, so therefore
comply with our thought.
World. Whoever holds the gold makes the rules.
There you go. Yeah. And so Newsom's saying, well, if that's the case, we're going to withhold the state funding from you. I think this is, yeah, I don't know. This is politicking. It's very irritating.
It's the problem I have with universities being, government funded.
Well,
Shireen, let's go to one last sort of, federal or national issue, and that is the ICE agents in Chicago. Yeah. There's a really troubling video out. Tell our listeners about that.
Yeah. So 37 people arrested, and American kids have been separated from their parents. My understanding is there are some U.S. citizen adults who are also scooped up in this raid. This is a unbelievable. I think if you have not seen the videos of children being pulled out of this apartment complex, being zip tied, and thought to yourself, this government is out of control, then I'm just like, what's it going to take? It's so inhumane. It's so morally corrupt and so cruel. And to see, Kristi Noem, to see Trump and his allies, frankly, celebrating this kind of show of force against folks, again, many of whom are U.S. citizens, and those are children, right, is so distressing to me. And I don't know what it's going to take if it has to happen in our own city. We're already seeing ICE in our own city. We already are seeing families separated in our own city. But to see this kind of horrific middle of the night militarization I just think should be beyond the pale for all of us.
Anything you want to say there, John, and just let that sit?
I think most Utahns agree with the concept. If there's dangerous criminals, you go out, doesn't matter day or night, you're going to go after them, especially when they're illegals. But if it's peaceful, harmless, the sole crime, if you will, is crossing the border illegally or overstaying a visa, I think most Utahns are saying there's got to be different priorities and different approaches.
Yeah.
Hey, so closer to home, we have our legislature in special session again. We're recording on Monday, so they're in special session today. They're looking at the new redistricting maps. Did either of you go in and make your preferences known? I think you did, Shireen, because you told everyone last week, don't use the phone.
Don't use your phone.
John, did you find time to go comment?
I didn't comment. I just poked around a little bit and looked at some of the maps and looked at some
I did not find time. I wanted to.
There were only 4,500 comments.
Did any of these districts keep Salt Lake City whole?
Well, no, I don't think any of them did.
I know
No.
Salt Lake County got broken up, but did
Salt Lake County
City Hall?
had to get broken up.
Yeah.
There's no way to keep it
But
together.
nothing kept Salt Lake City Hall.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe one.
Okay.
Now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, so no. And then the preferred map, the map that's moved forward.
Map C.
Map C.
Which the committee recommended.
Yeah. And I just have to say that this committee was perfunctory. I think that Utahns should be disappointed in the level of, I would say, weight or seriousness that it seemed our legislators took. Many of the comments were thrown out. They said that they were, they tossed out thousands of comments based on kind of their proclivities, and then moved forward really quickly with this recommendation of C, which is the least competitive map out of all of them. But I have to say, it's a map I can definitely live with because it is much better than what we have.
Yeah.
And then they also, I believe, are advancing Senator Brammer's partisan rule bill, which is one that I think all of us should be concerned around when it comes to just playing games with really what Utah voters passed and not really keeping to the spirit of what Utahns wanted to see.
So, John, they received 4,500 comments. During a 48-hour period, 900 came in.
And 4,500 came across a 1 week period.
Yeah.
People have some complaints about the way that Map C, which is the one that has been recommended by the legislature, combines eastern Salt Lake County with northeast Utah County. That's taking sort of a more liberal part of Salt Lake County and combining it with a more conservative part of Utah County.
Put Shereen and I potentially in the same district together, you know? I'm there in northeast Utah County, so that's my area. So
Yeah. Well,
and then goes parts east. So it goes out to the basin and down to San Juan County.
Yeah.
we'll know more real soon.
Yeah, we will.
So I also wanted to just bring up, we've got the Bureau of Land Management under the current administration selling 17,000 acres of oil and gas leases across Utah. This is what our president campaigned on.
Yeah. This
is what many Utahns were excited about, to see us become more, energy secure?
Or energy dominant.
You have a problem with this one, John?
No, I don't have a problem with this. I mean, I had a problem with the Biden administration locking it up and begging the Saudis for more oil rather than us producing it in America.
Mm-hmm.
So this, it is probably not producing country. I don't think that it is, but I'll just add that I think for me, the biggest concern is that I do believe the company that purchased this I believe it's called Bro Energy, which is concerning to me. But then also, the implementation of this. There are places, in this that are popular for rafters, for people who like to be outside, for hunters who had access to this land before when it was BLM land. Are they still going to have, will there be limited access, or are Utahns totally shut out?
I love the concept of multiple use. And it doesn't mean multiple uses in every parcel. It just means that, some parcels are for preservation, some parcels are for oil and gas development, some for others. That's how I view multiple use. I went and toured a solar farm recently in Emery County. Yeah. It had just shy of 1 million panels. So this is a big, extensive solar farm. I think it'll be one of the largest in the country when it's complete. And I'm telling you, it creates a visual that may not be appealing to a lot of people. Yeah. It's very land consumptive, is the way I would say it. And
it's just kind of like the Columbia River Gorge with all the windmills that now kind of destroy the landscape.
Comparison. Yeah, it's a fair comparison. And this was interesting because where this particular solar farm is, there's 2 coal-fired power plants right nearby, big transmission lines. It's in Emery County, and then this solar farm. And so,
which is why the solar farm's there. It's close to the power lines.
Yeah, and then just so it's clear what I'm saying, I think this was an appropriate place for this. It's by the power lines. It's by 2 coal-fired plants. I think this is an okay use of that land, but I understand people that feel impacted by what happens on our lands.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
Well, so can I shift the subject a little bit to something I noticed this morning? I'm reading the Axios newsletter, which I do usually each morning.
And that's one that I'm missing out on.
While Utahns are still among the youngest in the nation to marry, the age is creeping up. So now the average age, I think it's 26.2 for Utahns to marry. And though this seems like quite a while ago, 1950, the average age of Utahns to wed was 22. So this is a big jump in, I think, when we think about time, kind of a short period of time. I don't know if you would say that feels like a rapid change.
I would.
And it was interesting to me because there were again, still among the youngest in the nation, but, slowing that down. And then I also happen to know that it was General Conference this weekend, and it sounds like there were some messages about this. I'm just curious what...
You want to tell us about those messages?
Yeah, I was watching. No, I wasn't watching. I was
Shireen, sometime I want to invite you to come with me.
You know what? I've been.
Okay, because when you were an elected official, they invited you.
Yes, and I will say, a lot of the speeches kind of, I was like, I'm not totally sure what we're talking about, but I was very moved by the music.
Oh, lovely.
There you go.
Lovely.
There you go.
Well, to put a little bit of a specific on what Shireen's saying, we had the president of the Quorum of the 12.
So President Oaks spoke, and I would describe it as he chastised Mormons of they should not be following the trend when it's getting married later and having fewer kids in their families. They should be bucking the trend.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to say it. And another way I would say it is that Utah's always, for most of my career, had the highest fertility rate in the nation. Births per woman used to be around 3.2 births per woman when I started. It's fallen to 1.8.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big shift. And now ranks...
That's fallen below the replacement rate, right?
It's below the replacement level. And there's now 9 states with a higher fertility rate than Utah.
Yeah. And that includes, I always have to make this point, North and South Dakota, which is jumped ahead of us because of teen pregnancy. Nebraska's up there, Texas, Kentucky, Louisiana. So these are not states that I don't think we want to be emulating in terms of why we're having, kids. There are often places with lack of access to healthcare. But one of the things that I think is interesting in all of this is there has not been a more expensive time to have a child than there is right now. So when we're thinking about everything from, I feel like the way we're all experiencing increases at the grocery store, energy is certainly up. I don't know if you're noticing it. Just the cost of living in this state is going up, which I think I would love to see. And I would love to, there are a couple things I would love to collaborate with the LDS Church on. One, I think we have a really poor understanding of our fertility. I don't think people understand it. There are a lot of folks that seem to not exactly understand how they get pregnant. And I think that we could do a lot to help educate people so that, especially if they are delaying for financial reasons, that they know and can plan their families. And I think the cost of living has to be on the table.
Yeah, that's what you would call a pronatal policy, right? To contain, the rapid rises in cost of living. I would also say, though, that women have more opportunity than they've had in the past. And as you have more opportunity, there's more of a cost to having children.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out, it also seems like from my perspective that more couples are struggling to have kids. They're trying to have kids, they're trying to get pregnant, and they're struggling to get pregnant for whatever reason. I don't know if there's some medical issue in the water, but it's one of those type of things that I'm seeing more and more of that from my perspective.
Well, and the way the demographic trends work is if you delay marriage, you also typically delay childbirth, and if you delay childbirth, you have fewer births per woman. These all connect.
Exactly. And I just don't think people have a sense that you have a certain amount of eggs, you're born with them, and that it is harder over time, right? It gets harder over time, and there are additional risks and complications that come. And just having a basic understanding or education on that is not something that most Utahns really get.
So I'm the oldest of 11 with 18 years between us, almost to the day. So
well,
Natalie?
I'm the youngest of 11 with 20 years between us. Yeah. And boy, have I loved coming from a big family.
Yeah, I will say I always wanted to come from a giant family, but I think that's one of the fantasies of an only child.
Shireen, we only have a couple minutes left.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to pepper me with some questions about the economy. Go for it.
So I was asking.
And we'll bring John in because he's got a lot of perspective there too.
When we think about just the increased cost of living, and I know we used to have a long period of time where I kept asking you, are we in a recession? What's your take on what's happening? What do you think is the economic landscape right now?
The 2 words that I think of, John, are uncertainty and resilience. Just incredible resilience for this economy to have gone through so much and still be holding strong. And yet the future is quite uncertain with a Fed that is in a pickle because they have inflation not under control, but job growth falling. Yeah. What do you see, John?
And a lot of trade uncertainty.
Yeah, a lot of trade uncertainty, a lot of labor supply
that would just
uncertainty.
Announce something today that'll be different tomorrow. And
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're not seeing your labor needs met, and now you've got a government shutdown, and we're not getting the information we need to make decisions. And one of the things I fear the most is a Federal Reserve policy error.
Oh, yeah.
If they start dropping because of what they're seeing in the labor market, they start dropping rates, and inflation ticks up. It's hard to get rid of it.
Some will point out what happened when Nixon was president, and it took until Reagan and some dire drastic measures over about a decade to fix it.
If I could do one thing for the economy, I would quit the uncertainty. I would add much more certainty for business leaders. So that comes.
How would you do that?
Well, I wouldn't sit here and change tariff rates every day. Yeah. I wouldn't be making a scene with deportations and the like. I would try to bring a little bit more just stability.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, one thing that I did think was a hopeful piece of news is the White House has withdrawn their nomination of E.G. Antony to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because I do think these decisions have to be made with good information. This was not a person who should have been in that role. And it was nice to see a little win there. I hope the next person is somebody who can be trustworthy with these numbers.
Yeah. And John and Shireen, I'll just close this out by saying that even with this uncertainty, there is no state in the country that I would rather be doing business in than the state of Utah. It's pro-business. It's got a reasonable tax and regulatory structure, and we led the nation in GDP growth last year.
I love how hard you go for the state. Thank you, Natalie.
Hey, it's been a great program. Thanks, everybody. Shireen Gorbani, Natalie Gochner, John Dougal. Programs produced by Anthony Skoma. Thanks for listening.